Topping today's news, the U.S. Vice President arrives in the Bahamas for high-level meetings. Opposition takes the government to task on the fiscal budget. The leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister battle over the National Insurance Board, and the Road Traffic Department shoots down false amendments that went viral. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. United States Vice President Kamala Harris is in the Bahamas for high-level meetings with the Caribbean community, CARICOM, regional leaders. On her arrival here in the capital this afternoon, she held a meet and greet with over 200 people from civil organizations before heading to Atlanta's Paradise Island to co-host the CARICOM regional meetings with Chair of the CARICOM, Prime Minister Philip Davis. She is expected to announce a myriad of new funding initiatives to curb climate crisis, among other things. Our Destiny Johnson was at the airport this afternoon and has more in this next report.
United States Vice President Kamala Harris landed in the Bahamas this afternoon at the Odyssey Aviation for the Caribbean Community CARICOM regional leaders. She was greeted by U.S. Charge d'Affaires Usha Pitts, government ministers including Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell, Education Minister Gladys Hannah Martin, and Minister of State for the Public Service Pia Glover Roll. As she landed, VP Harris inspected the honor guard of the law enforcement officers and then was met by over 200 persons, including primary and high school students, members of the local Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and members of the LGBTQIA community, after which she headed to the Atlantis Resort Paradise Island, where she greeted Prime Minister Philip Davis, other Bahamian government officials, and CARICOM leaders. VP Harris, along with Prime Minister Davis, who is the current chair of CARICOM, is co-hosting the U.S. Caribbean meeting, which builds on previous meetings that she has had with Caribbean leaders back in April, June, and September of last year. As VP Harris is the highest-ranking U.S. government official to visit the Bahamas since 1973, Acting Consular Chief at the U.S. Embassy Jessica Heuser tells reporters what went into this historic event.
Oh my goodness, this has been weeks in the making, lots of intense diplomatic negotiations, trying to get everything just right. As we're, celebrating our 50 years of diplomatic relations here, celebrating your 50 years of independence, so we knew we had to go big. And we are just so excited to have her here. And of course, this is Caribbean American Heritage Month, so what an excellent way to kick that off as well.
Children from various schools throughout New Providence boasted about being a part of the delegation welcoming the U.S. Vice President and were delighted to have spoken with her during the greetings. St. John's College and C.R. Walker High School students shared their probably once-in-a-lifetime interactions with VP Harris.
Well, to say the least, it was a very enlightening experience, to be less than 5 feet away from such a powerful woman, and a black woman at that. It was really great and definitely a life-lasting memory.
For me, the experience was once in a lifetime. I know that seeing someone like her at her rank, that's an experience that I think all Bahamian children should experience, and for me, that was once in a lifetime thing.
Wow, it's surprising. I didn't expect it to be this, a person. I expected it to be more from a sideline, but we actually got to see her and we got to wave at her and it felt personal. It's like you get someone to look up to. You have a chance. You see someone who looks like you and say, she looks like me. I have a chance. It doesn't depend on how I look like, but it's nice of someone who looks like you to look up to.
And President of Eta Psi Omega Chapter Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Margot Adderley, expressed her excitement for the visit of the sorority sister and says she embodies exactly who they are as an organization.
It's an amazing opportunity to have Vice President Kamala Harris come to the Bahamas. As we are on the road to 50 years, and Eta Psi Omega Chapter Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is embarking upon 60 years of service and sisterhood in the Bahamas. So it's a phenomenal feeling. Well, it took a team effort. It took all of us together to come and to represent and to show our love and gratitude to all the sisters in the Bahamas who have laid the foundation for us. And we always reflect on our founders from 1908. So we have a principle and we have a presence, and we want to ensure that everyone knows that Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, HSI Psi Omega Chapter, is here to stay. And we're doing a phenomenal job in the Bahamas, and we continue to strive for excellence.
For Jcn News, I'm Destiny Johnson.
While at the meetings today, discussions with the U.S. Vice President, they were talks around security and firearms trafficking, the needs for an enhanced diplomatic presence in the Eastern Caribbean, the crisis in Haiti, and the U.S.-Caribbean partnership to address the climate crisis 2030, according to a statement from the White House. Also today, while here in the Capitol, Vice President Harris was expected to announce more than $100 million in new assistance for the Caribbean region, including $98 million in new funding from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, to address climate, energy, food security, and humanitarian assistance in the Caribbean. The United States Agency for International Development also intends to provide $20 million in funding to companies with financial and technical assistance and business development services through the Caribbean Climate Investment Program. USAID is also providing nearly $15 million to support disaster risk reduction, emergency response capacity strengthening, and resilience building across the Caribbean. This funding will bring the total investment by USAID in disaster risk reduction, resilience building in the Caribbean to over $80 million in the last 5 years. The topic of the country's National Insurance Board, NIB, sparked a heated debate back and forth in the House of Assembly on Wednesday between the Minister of Finance, Prime Minister Philip Davis, and Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Michael Pintard. During his 2023-2024 budgetary debate, he commented on a statement released by his office announcing a pending hike in NIB contributions beginning July 1st, 2024. Prime Minister Davis says the increase is a much-needed reform in order to secure the long-term future of the fund, as the problem affecting NIB goes back over many years. However, Prime Minister Davis slammed Mr. Pintard for his response to the announcement, saying Mr. Pintard is playing the character of long-suffering victim. As debate on the fiscal budget 2023-2024 continued well into the evening on Wednesday, Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama, Kwesi Thompson, levied criticism towards the new budget. The former State Minister for Finance brought government to task concerning what the opposition sees as new taxes being introduced to Bahamians.
Bahamians don't want to come to members of parliament. They come to us because they need to come to members of parliament because of the circumstances that they are facing. The Prime Minister spoke for 2 hours last time, another 2 hours this morning, but failed to even mention the new sugar tax, failed to give details on NIB, failed to speak about the boat registration, failed to speak about the increased harbor dues, failed to speak about the hotel condo, the new hotel condo tax, failed to speak about the real property tax, and failed to speak about that.
The Shadow Minister of Finance goes on to state that the budget, despite its purported purpose, does not actually address national security and threatens the private sector with contempt and disdain.
Unfortunately, this budget is still out of touch with the everyday challenges that Bahamians are facing. The budget lacks the vision to mitigate the severe effects of inflation, and this was again spoken by the member for Vauxhall. The member for Vauxhall said crime may be a difficulty, but he believes that inflation is the most serious thing. But I agree with him that inflation is one of the most serious things, and this budget fails to address inflation. Does nothing to reduce the high unemployment. It is void of ideas to advance the ease of doing business and digitization, and makes it more and more expensive and difficult to do business. Yes, sir. This is not, and I stress not a budget for the people.
Mr. Thompson says the Progressive Liberal Party government has been consistent, but not for the things associated with good governance.
They've been consistent. They have been consistent lawbreakers. There is one law for them and another law for everyone else. And this budget is no different. They are consistent in breaching the Central Bank Act and had to come to Parliament to clean up the illegal loan that was provided by Central Bank. They consistently breached the Procurement Act.
Yes.
They did not follow the Procurement Act in the bidding process or in the process of choosing someone for the proposed new prison. A new prison that has increased in cost without what I say is sufficient explanation.
Mr. Thompson reiterated his criticism of the tabled Public Finance Management Immigration Levy Fund bill, which he says creates a special slush fund that seeks to collect revenue from levies and taxes paid as instructed under the Immigration Act and Customs. To this, he says the opposition has strong issue with the amendments to the Immigration Act and the Customs Management Act, which he says seeks to delegate taxation powers to the minister. And finally, in this segment, following Prime Minister Philip Davis, who led off debate on the 2023-2024 budget, Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Public Service, Fred Mitchell, took to the floor. His speech focused on touch, see, and feel, meaning that the government has organized a budget from which the Bahamian people can touch, see, and feel its impact.
The way we've managed this budget is that this year, we are on the way to, first of all, the lowest level of borrowing in a generation.
Yes.
And this will allow the credit space, the latitude to put money on the ground. And that must be job one, put money on the ground. The budget is going to pay for so many things this year. It's going to pay for the scholarships for the students that will come and apply through the Ministry of Education. It will help Jamal Strawn, who is the Member of Parliament for Nassau Village, to put that community center together. And I want to congratulate him on putting that community center together. It's a big step. In helping to build community. You're going to get the water in Eleuthera fixed. That's what the budget's going to do.
Good stuff.
The road in Red Bays has been finished. That's what the budget's going to do. And you're going to be finishing and fixing the roads in Exuma.
Yes.
Building the airport in Cat Island. Getting the power back on and up and running in Acklands. So many things this budget will do because it is focused on making sure that we help people.
Minister Mitchell, who is also the PLP chairman, says he is also focused on the 2026 general elections and is asking the Bahamian public to support the Davis administration, as 5 years is not enough to get the job done. He says to achieve all they would like to achieve in the blueprint for change, they would need another 5 years. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.